Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. My name is John Dykes, and today I'm joined by Jim Seminity. Jim, it's great that we can have a wee laugh before we come on, because there wasn't much to laugh about last night. We're asking the question, who's to blame for the disastrous result last night in the Champions League? And obviously we want you to get involved. We're going live on YouTube, Facebook and also Twitter. So make your comments, get involved, and we'll go through as many of them as possible. I mean, last night, Jim, was absolutely disgraceful as far as I'm concerned.
I'm asking you how I'm looking. The reason I'm asking you how I'm looking,
you're looking great,
is because I don't know how I'm feeling. I'm feeling despondent. I'm feeling that what happened last night. The lineup, Celtic Park. Where's our two strikers?
Where's our one striker?
Where's our one striker? But where's the two strikers that we need to see up there? I suppose what you're saying is one striker would have been a bonus last night, but we've got to have the two strikers up there, Paul. We've got to be an attacking team. The thinking behind it, only the manager and the backroom staff I'll know why they put it out like that.
I think you break it into three different areas, right? Because we're asking the question, who's to blame here? I've had plenty of time to think about it after watching the game last night, Jim.
Yeah.
You and I have been chatting about it all morning. And there's three different distinct areas that you could say, well, is it people like Peter Lawwell on the board with regards to getting deals over the line, completing the signing of players that we require in good enough time to go into these ties with a team that is ready to play together? Is it the manager for picking a side without a striker for 78 minutes on that pitch? People keep telling me about the amount of chances that we created. We might have created chances, but we've no striker to put them in the back of the net. Now, that for me falls at the door of the manager. Then after the game, we get an interview with Neil Lennon where he makes a suggestion that not all is not well. Is there mutiny in the camp? That's one of my biggest concerns. Now, we've been here before. We've been here with Brendan Rodgers when he's coming out and giving interviews about Terminado, when people like Boyata are refusing to play, when Dembele is forcing a move. We've been here before, Jim, and the whole focus is now on what's gone wrong behind the scenes.
Let's go back last week when we spoke and we said there can't be any indecisiveness. There's got to be a togetherness. We're on it together. And we've been preaching that as we go. Now we find last night, with the manager's comments, that we don't have maybe the togetherness that we all thought we had. And we certainly have the indecisiveness, it seems, if players want to stay or if they want to leave.
We'll definitely talk about that, Jim.
Emotions, see after you've played a game, emotions run high. Emotions run high, and you start to say things. Because you're still in the game. You're still in that part of the game. But I'm very surprised at the discontent and if there is a divide in the dressing room. That saddens me. That's
the biggest concern for me. We've got players in that dressing room who, in a time where people are losing jobs and losing lives, we've got guys who are throwing the toys at the pram in the dressing room. So that, it doesn't just sadden me, it actually disgusts me, Jim. We're coming up against the side last night, Ferencvaros. We'd done a wee bit of homework on them, and I'm sure Celtic did as well. They were well organised, and they were well disciplined. They were nothing special.
Not special.
Now, what happened there is Rebrov, the manager, well known for being Shevchenko's strike partner way back in their early days, he exposed Celtic's defensive weaknesses at the back. Now, at the time, I saw the opening goal, I thought, that's a cracker. You can't stop that. When you start analysing it, who closed the boy down? At one point, Scott Brown continues to the left to create the space that allows the boy to take that shot. I'm not blaming Barkas for the first goal. Second goal, El Hamed. A simple ball over the top. At one point, El Hamed has control of that situation. He's got his foot on the ball. He plays it right back into the path of the Ferencváros striker, who still should never score from that angle with the goalkeeper at his near post.
Absolutely.
It's basic defending.
The second goal, when it's come over the top, right on one, the big guy's he's got to take him long before he hits that box. Mm-hmm. Long before he hits that box, he's got to take him, because at that part in the game, dare I say it, it's one each when we can still hang on to get into extra time. He's got to clear it. Rather than that, as you've rightfully said, he lets him run into the box, he lets him get the stride in front of him, he lets him get on the ball to hit it, and the goalkeeper, Barkas, as well, his positional sense there as well wasn't the best, but he's got to hit him further out in the park. He cannot let him get that stride in front of him. Even if he's got to take a yellow card there, he's got to take it. I
was going to ask you, do you think that was playing on El Hamed's mind? We're always praising El Hamed. He was already booked. He was booked in the first half. Is that playing on his mind at that stage, Jim?
It could well be, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If you think he's going to be getting away for you at that part of the last third of that park, and he's going to be, you've got to do something about it. Mm-hmm. You can't leave it to chance that the goalkeeper's going to pull you and save you there. No, you've got to take care of it. Yellow card or no yellow card.
Yeah.
Or if it means a red, you're taking it.
So there's a responsibility from the players who created all these chances. They scored one goal. You know, looking at the goal that was chopped off from El Yunusi, I'm not going to labour the fact. I think he was onside. He was onside, Jim. But it was beyond that for me, because before that, when the lineup was actually announced, and you're looking at the fact that Neil Lennon has got £8 million worth of strikers sitting on the bench.
Aye.
We've got Lee Griffiths, don't know where he is, right? In the game against Dundee United, we had 10 corners. In the game last night, 7 corners. 17 corners flighted in by Ryan Christie. And what came from those corners? Aye. 17 corners.
You can have 100 corners, Paul.
Nothing came from it.
Nothing comes from him. Nothing comes from him. There's a...
But Lee Griffiths is the best corner kick taker at Celtic Park.
Aye.
Nobody knows where he is. Now, people might say to me, oh, that's private, this and that. He's got a calf strain. Edouard's got a thigh strain. Right. It's you as a manager, your responsibility to make sure your best players are on that pitch.
Yep.
So Lee Griffiths has been... No one's seen him for 3 or 4 weeks, right? No one's seen him. We don't know what's happened with Lee Griffiths. That boy can score you goals. That boy can take a corner. You've got Klamala there. He's not ready for the game. He's been at Celtic
for 18 months.
A year and a half. If he's not ready now, he never will be ready, right? And you've got a Jetty. Fair enough. He's maybe struggling for match sharpness. You've got to start with at least one striker, Jim.
Right. So, back to the first goal. Yeah. He's got to be closed in at there. Mm-hmm. He's definitely got to be closed down.
There's Greg Taylor. He's on the wrong side of him for a left back.
Aye.
He's on the wrong side of him. He's on the player's left-hand side.
Aye. And
he's nowhere near him.
And he tries to come across. So, we've lost that. That's an error. That's an error with no closing down. But people do score goals for those positions. The manager has come out and he said that he's taking full responsibility, which he has to do because he's picked the team. Mm-hmm. I think when everybody's seen the team last night and the formation of that team, they all became disheartened. Even before the ball was kicked, the talk was, what's happening here? Mm-hmm. Where is it? So when I seen it, I went, wow, that's interesting. There's just something not right.
History repeating itself, Jim.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not a master tactician. I'm probably not one of the best tacticians. But when I look at that, I say, as a coach, there's something not right there. Mm-hmm. There's something not right. So you look at it, we had the chances in the game, the final third, we should have finished. We had opportunities to finish. We never done it against a lesser, and no disrespect to the team, but against a lesser opposition, we failed to be able to put the ball in the back of the net in various occasions. Mm-hmm. We should have been strolling that comfortably.
See, when we started the game, unfortunately, like many people, our season ticket didn't work until the last minute, so we didn't go live till about 10 seconds before kick-off. Ferencváros looked like the home side. Celtic went out there and looked as though we were being pinned back. Their goalkeeper was collecting the ball 40 yards out with his feet and spraying it about the park. And straight away you think to yourself, we've not come out the traps positively enough here. No. We go a goal down, and I'm not surprised. Now, I think when Christie scores the equaliser, Jim, that's your get out of jail card, right? It's not working, change it. You can't continue until the 78th minute without a striker. Now, I said, history repeating itself. We seen the same last year against Cluj, where we had Bolingoli. He's maybe not the flavour of the month, but back then he's a left back, and he's on the bench against Cluj, and we played McGregor at left back. Something we should have known wouldn't have worked, because we tried it previously against Rangers and it didn't work at Ibrox. We've got Julien on the bench, £7 million. So in total, £10 million sitting on the bench last year. We go out to Cluj, a team that we later proved we were far superior than when we met them in the Europa League. Over there it was a dead rubber. When we had to beat them at home, we beat them comfortably at home. The same thing happened last night. £8 million worth of strikers on the bench, and not a sight of a striker until 78 minutes at Celtic Park, and a winner-takes-all European Champions League tie. I'm astounded at that.
The decision to put Ajeti on at that part in the game, I would have had him on a lot earlier for him to get into the game. I didn't give him much time. But again, if you're buying a £5 million player and you're up against that there, he should be on. He should be on maybe even for the start. He should be on for the start.
Listen,
if he's
let him tire. You've got another striker on the bench.
Aye.
You know?
So what the manager's thinking was last night is really hard at this particular time to comprehend, but there must be other things in here. I'm going to say it again, there must be other things in here.
Now, I've already said history repeating itself, because I believe Lennon made the same mistake last year in Europe as he did last night. Now, on another point you're saying there about the disharmony within the squad, history is repeating itself again. We've seen this before, with Rodgers coming out and making thinly veiled comments that all was not well. Lennon comes out last night and he suggests that there's certain people at the club who don't want to be there. Now, we've already seen the public criticism of Bolingoli, rightly so, for what he did, and Lee Griffiths earlier on this season. This is the third time. We've only played 3 league games. This is the third time Neil Lennon's come out and hung the players out to dry, right? Now, if there's mutiny in the camp, Jim, the only way you can prevent that or turn it round is by removing the bad apples, if there are any, or the manager changes. So which one's it going to be? That's a big question for me this morning.
That's a big question.
If you've got 2 or 3 players that want to leave, it's going to spread through the changing room.
Well, as a coach, if you've got one bad apple, and then you get 2 bad apples, they've got to go. 2 bad apples have got to go. If you've got 3, you've got a massive problem. You get 2, you've got a problem. If you get 3, you've got a massive problem.
Now, again, I said this yesterday because we were being critical, Jim, and I'll say it again today. We're not here to play lip service to Celtic Football Club. We're Celtic fans. We invest in the club, time, money, like everybody else who's on this stream at the moment. So if we need to criticise Celtic, we'll criticise them. That doesn't mean to say we're being negative. Last night's unacceptable.
Constructive.
It's unacceptable last night.
A constructive criticism.
And this goes back to the initial opening gambit. Who's to blame, right? Lennon's got to take the blame for last night. The players, if there's mutiny in the camp, they're going to have to take the blame for that occurring, because if 2 or 3 of them are unhappy and want to leave, I don't care who it is, get rid of them. Because you cannot operate a successful football club with 2 or 3 people unhappy in that dressing room. And even if it's Edward, Apparently he had a groin strain last night. If he's the man, him, Encham, I'm speculating. I have no inside track on this. These players, you need to remove them. Rodgers seen it when he came in, and there was the senior pros issue that had existed under Ronnie Dyler. The only guy that actually survived the cull was Scott Brown. The rest of them on their bike. It's the only way to deal with it.
But it happens every... Even you go back to previous managers at Celtic, it's happened with them and they've sorted it out. If there's discontent in the squad, then Neil Lennon has got to address it. He's got to see if he can fix it as of now, and if he can't, then the decision has got to be taken. What happens with these players who have discontent and don't want to play? Now, there's a saying that the players play for the manager. That's a true saying as well. But these players that play for Celtic play for the fans. They don't just necessarily play for the manager. They play for their wages as well. But as a professional, they've got to look beyond. If they've got a disagreement with the manager, or they don't have a liking for the manager, what about the fans out there? What about the fans? It's them that pay their wages. It's the fans that support them through thick and thin, through good and bad. So it's really, really disappointing that we're at this stage, this Thursday morning, and talking about this. It's disheartening, but it's got to be spoken about. It's
got to be spoken about, Jim. And I think there's been a few people previously said to us, the only team that is going to stop us from winning 10 in a row is Celtic. Yeah. Now, we have got to ensure that this doesn't turn into a full-blown implosion within the ranks. Now, we're talking here about a situation that we've faced before. We faced it with Dembele. Let's not forget, because he's always banging on about Celtic on Twitter. No. Let's not forget that he actually he engineered his own move out of Celtic Park through cryptic messages on Twitter, criticising certain figures within the club. Boyata went on strike before the AEK Athens game. Yeah. Similar stage in Europe back 2 or 3 seasons ago. Last season, we're going into games with players on the bench that should have started. Last night, the same thing happened. And it begs the question, will we ever learn? You go further back, you go to Brendan Rodgers' time, we're coming up against European sides with people like Efe Ambrose, Sede Janko, Nadir Chifche, Owen O'Connell. We get beat from Barcelona 7-0. You look at the lineup, no wonder we got beat 7-0. De Vries is in goal and O'Connell's playing centre half. PSG, Anthony Ralston. Can we not get the deals done early doors so that we actually go in, rather than trying to scrape through against these so-called minnows? Well, last night the minnows beat us.
Right, so we've messed up 4 of the last 6 qualifications. Yeah?
Yeah.
Right. So we look at that and we say, how do we get it right? How do we get it right for past experiences? We're bringing in players that you're buying and saying that he'll do a job for me. But what happens when they get in? Do they then go, I'm not happy here, I don't want to play that way, I'm not happy at the style of play? What happens, Paul? Is it a case that we are doing something wrong at the club? The chief executive, he's still there. These qualifications, the single most important financial impact on our business squad and value is qualifying for the Champions League.
Yes. And we're failing to do that.
So it's not just one individual. It's a collective of people. It's a collection of people, and collectively it's done to every one of them last night that went wrong.
It is, but for me the gaping issue last night is the fact that we've lined up at home and we've lined up with a formation that quite clearly was not right, but we're playing one guy up front and he's not a striker.
It's not right.
We've got £8 million worth of strikers sitting on the bench. We've got Lee Griffiths that nobody knows where he is or what stage he's at or if he'll ever play for the club again.
Yeah.
He's the only guy at Celtic Park that can take a corner.
Paul, I'm agreeing with you that the lineup I'm bewildered with.
Totally bewildered. Klamala, 18 months down the line, he's not ready to play a game. Well, he either isn't good enough or is never going to be fit enough after 18 months, so you move him on. £3 million, another £3 million down the Swanee. Sorrow, somebody's mentioning Sorrow in the comments. Is he really ready for first team football? I doubt it. Or he'd be playing. He'd be playing, Jim. We've just signed Turnbull, but I can't even, bring myself to be happy at that as much as I like the boy, because I don't think that's where the trouble lies. We created chances last night and we couldn't score them. The defensive issues were exposed massively last night.
Completely
2
exposed.
chances, 2 goals.
Yeah.
And in Europe,
Errors.
you don't come back from that.
Errors. They goals were errors.
Neil Lennon's talking about attitude and mentality. The attitude and mentality of his players isn't right.
Yeah.
Well, if these guys can't motivate themselves to represent Celtic in this season of all seasons, then you're right. The blame has to go on them. It needs to go on Lennon for his team selection. It needs to go on the higher echelons of the club for failing to get the right players in.
And it goes to the manager for putting his trust in these players to put them on the park and to play the way that he thinks he wants them to play. So his trust in them to go on that park and do a job for the fans, it's not come off. But it doesn't stop us thinking about that lineup. And I'm staring at this lineup now, and I cannot suss it. As I say again, no great master tactician, but I just don't get that. I don't get that lineup.
No, it doesn't
and the
make
reason
sense.
I don't get Charm and Christie, right, up front.
And you know what else?
As such,
no one can come to us, Jim, right, and say, yeah, but we had 70% possession, or we had 26 shots on goal. We got beat 2-1.
Paul,
bottom line.
Correct, you can have 100% possession. But if you've got 100% possession and you don't do anything with it, if you don't penetrate them and score goals, there's no point in having 100%. There's absolute, or 70% or 60%. There's no point. It's like in a boxing match. The guy can have the whole. You can have 12 rounds. He's won in 12 rounds. And the guy comes in and he hits him with a sucker punch and he's out. Exactly the same thing. The possession, all these stats with possessions, with corners, with this, the most important figure that counts is that ball in the back of the net.
And in a game like last night, when it's a one-off game, Jim,
that's it.
It's a one-off, winner takes all. You're at Celtic Park and you go out there without a striker. Now, if the master plan was to switch that at a very specific point in the game, I've not seen it. If there was a time to switch it, it was when Christie scored. That was the get out of jail card. This isn't work, Neil. Change it. And it wasn't changed until the 78th minute.
No.
So I'm looking at that. It was a terrible night last night. We've got loads of frustration coming through in the comments. We'll come to them in just a moment or two. You can't expect to throw somebody like Ayer in out of the blue. He's not been playing. He got a substitute appearance against Dundee United. He starts the game. We're trying to forge a partnership at centre half here, and it's getting chopped and changed every week.
Yeah, it is. But so is it. So is the formation there. So is that formation. But that is getting chopped. Beaton had a cracking couple of games. He's not even the bench last night, is he?
He was on the bench, but he never got a look in. He didn't get a look in. El Hamid, we've been very, very, big with our praise for El Hamid.
Aye.
Last night he gets quite an early booking. I think that's maybe part of his decision making when he's trying to stop Ferencváros for the second goal. But he was in control of that situation. Look at it back. There's a moment where the ball's at his right foot and he plays it right in front of the boy.
Aye.
It's just poor individual errors.
Poor individual decision making. The decision making run about the park individually wasn't the best last night. It really wasn't the best, and there just seemed to be a lack, dare I say it, of leadership last night.
That was mentioned last night, And I'm astonished at that, because I don't disagree with you, but you look at the guys who you see as leaders within that team. We've lost the goalkeeper, Foster, who was a leader. Chris Ayer, Julien, El Hamid, McGregor, Brown, they're all leaders. So in a situation like that, Jim, they're the guys that need to stand up.
Aye.
They need to stand up. If things are not going your way, that was a must-win game last night. Make no bones about it. You've given some of the figures there, the lost revenue. In this year of all years, I'm not talking about 10 in a row, I'm talking about COVID. We need to progress in Europe, and we've not done it. And that's 2 seasons on the bounce. Now, last season, we enjoy the Lazio wins. I was with you at Celtic Park to see us beating Lazio 2-1. Yep. I think Colin might have gone to the away game. And these 2 victories can't, for me, whitewash the fact that we were bounced out of Europe by an inferior side in Cluj earlier on, right? The same things happened here. Will Ferencváros progress, Jim? Will they progress? Do you think they'll be in the group stages?
Personally, I don't think so.
No.
But how far did the Copenhagen progress?
They got
it
into
the same basic mistakes as them.
Same mistakes. I mean, I said before, obviously they had their tie this season due to the lockdown. They played Manchester United. God help us if we had to play that tie at this moment in time. We're in disarray. We've got the ball and golly situation. We've got Lee Griffiths nowhere to be seen. You've got the manager coming out 3 times in the matter of 4 or 5 weeks and throwing his players under a bus. There's mutiny in the camp, apparently, going by what Neil Lennon's saying.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm speculating, so I'm not going to say it's A, B or C who wants to leave.
No, if
they want to leave, let them leave. Let them go.
We can sit here and speculate all day long. But if you look at it, you can say there is definitely something not right.
Yes.
Now, is the word abject management, is that a correct terminology, Paul? Is that what's happening within the whole setup? I'm not just talking about the manager, I'm talking about the whole management side, because it's done to it. Really is done to everybody. It's done to everybody that's involved with the squad. Granted, the manager has the final say, but if me and you are talking about something and you advise me and it's the right advice, I'm taking it. Or if I advise you, right, Paul, maybe we shouldn't do this, hopefully you're taking that on board.
Yeah.
I'm taking it on board. That's what makes a team. It's not just about one guy going, I'm away to do this. I don't care what any's are saying. This must have been a collective decision for that formation to be put out. So, why did they get put out like that? Why was there no strikers on? We're asking the question and we're repeating ourselves here. The listeners and the callers have got their views to put across. But one thing that I'm really, really loath to do is criticise for the sake of criticising. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to do that because we know how important this season is. We know how important last night was. We know how important the revenue is. We know how important the togetherness is. And we know how important the indecisiveness can't be about the club. You asked me about a young Karamoko Dembele. I said yesterday, if he doesn't want to be there, then the best thing that a lad can do is leave. But we can't say that to every player at this particular time, or can we?
Well, I actually think you've got to. There's only 2 ways that this is going to end. Player power, which inevitably leads to the manager being dismissed, or you get rid of the players that is causing the rift. Now, I go back to Ronnie Dyler.
Aye.
And there was a group of senior players, everybody knows it, I'm not, it's not an exclusive. There was a group of senior players who didn't buy into his philosophy.
Yeah.
The only one that remained was Scott Brown, the rest of them were shipped out. But that was after the manager lost his job.
Yeah.
So you're looking at it now. Am I calling for Lennon's head this morning? No, I've not said that once. I'm critical of last night's team selection. I've not once said Lennon out. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it on social media. What I'm saying is there's something wrong, Jim. You're right. There's something wrong when you can't get your signings year on year over the line, so that we go into the most important fixtures of the season in terms of the money you're mentioning with a settled side. We've never got a settled side.
Not correct, but that getting players over the line isn't necessarily down to the manager.
No, it's
That's
not.
about our whole team.
That's right. It's not the manager.
That's our whole team. And if we've got something wrong, how do we fix it? How do we fix in defeat? In defeat, we've got to take that to become part of learning how to win. But last night is not down to one individual. It's down to everybody that played a part in that game last night. Mm-hmm. Everybody that played a part in the game.
Yeah, you're right. And everybody at the club. If I break it down to the people that make the signings, you're looking at the board, you're looking at Peter Lawwell. If you're then looking at the guy who picks the team, then the blame needs to lie on Neil Lennon last night.
And he said it. He's taken the dairy for that.
But he's also mentioned the players.
Yes, he has. Yeah,
he's mentioned the players, and this is the third time this season. He singled out Bolingoli. Who could blame him? He singled out Griffiths. We've never seen Griffiths since. And then last night, we don't know who he's talking about. I'm concerned Edouard wasn't in the side. He wasn't even on the bench. Is he one of the players who wants to leave? Even if Edouard wants to leave, you've got to sell him, because Edouard would be very influential amongst the French contingent within Celtic Football Club, and if one player becomes happy, that can spread to 2 or 3 players.
Yeah.
So if one of the guys is unhappy and he wants to leave, and you've got a sufficient bid on the table, you let him leave, you rebuild.
Yep.
Because if you don't, this is going to continue throughout the season, Jim.
Yep.
It's not going to get any better.
Yep.
That disharmony in the changing room. It's
got to stop.
That could make or break your success.
Again, Paul, I'm going to say it again. At the start of the season, we said no disharmony, nothing to take our eye off anything that we want to achieve this year. Is to progress into the Champions League and to progress in the league.
Tony Cassidy, thank you for getting involved. Tony, you're commenting via Twitter. No point signing players 1 week before the qualifiers.
No, he's right, guys.
Absolutely spot on. You've got to, the players you sign in January should be the guys that you are bedding into the team, so that when it comes round to the qualifiers, you've got a side that you know who the partnership is at the back. We're going into every single qualification campaign, Jim, in the same shape. We end up, as I say, playing players like Sede Janko, and Ralston at right back against players like Neymar. It's no wonder you get beat 7-1, 5-0. That's what's going to happen. So it's this gamble to constantly try and scrape through against the minnows. But what happens if you come up against an ultra well-drilled side like Ferencváros? What, nothing special last night, but they were well organised. And when it came to the chances, they were decisive. They were decisive with the 2 chances, and they scored goals. And actually, they deserved to go through.
Do you think we underestimated the motivation of that team last night? By that I mean they've came to the famous Celtic Park. They've seen it, and they've taken the opportunity, and they've been motivated higher than the Celtic players, because that's what it looked like to me last night. That they were very highly motivated. They wanted to win so bad. We didn't look as if we were really working in harmony.
Well, the harmony, that's a big thing, because what the language used by Neil Lennon, attitude or mentality, that's what he said after the game. Do the players have the right attitude or mentality? I'm always loath to question somebody's work rate or if they care. He doesn't look like he cares when he's walking off the pitch at the end of the game. I wouldn't say that, because I know that after a game you might be knackered, you might be disappointed.
Yeah.
I actually believe any professional sports person must care about the outcome of a game they've been involved in. But attitude or mentality, if Neil Lennon's bringing that up, then it is an issue. It's been bothering him for a while, he says. Is the place to air that after a game that you've just been bounced out of Europe? I don't think so. You deal with that in-house, because that disharmony is going to continue. As a player, say you are one of 3 or 4 guys who are unhappy with Neil Lennon. Is that going to help?
No. The problems in the dressing room get sorted in the dressing room.
They should do. They absolutely should. Now, Stephen Ray, you're commenting via YouTube. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Big figures today, and quite rightly so. Everybody's frustrated this afternoon after last night, even though we've gone out and signed David Turnbull, one of the most promising Scottish footballers that plays in the Scottish game. We've signed him just prior to the Motherwell game. I can't get too excited about it, and I'm sure we'll speak about him in a couple of days. Stephen Ray, the manager, is 100% to blame, as he was against Cluj and Copenhagen. He got away with one in the League Cup final, and thankfully Rangers imploded after the new year. Signs of Rangers 97-98 all over this season. Now, thanks for bringing up the League Cup there, Stephen, because I think when you look at the fact they got away with it in the League Cup final by playing Lewis Morgan up front, an unrecognised striker playing up front, the reason we got away with it, Fraser Foster. That was the reason we got away with it, because he was unbeatable that day. Last night we didn't have that luxury.
No.
Because Barkas actually was to blame, partly for the second goal, I would suggest.
Absolutely. You go back to the League Cup final, there's another 10 players on that park that could have helped that day as well, but it didn't. It just didn't happen until he made the change. But the goalkeeper saved us that day. We were lucky. We got an absolutely. We actually got a bit of a doing, but we came at it. Mm-hmm. But how did we come at it? With that goal. It's like, what I'm saying is, you can have all the possession, you can have all the shots in goal, but you've got to have it in your bag to be able to pull that sucker punch out. Mm-hmm. And we don't seem to have that at the moment.
Daniel McAlpine, welcome to the show, Daniel. Great to hear from you. And you are commenting via YouTube. If you're not already, please subscribe. It's all free of charge. Do all the players understand what 10 in a row means to the supporters? That is actually a very interesting question.
No.
Because it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to you, and probably everybody else who's tuning into this broadcast. Does it mean a lot to someone who sees Celtic as a step throughout their football career in order to progress to the next level? Does it? I'm pretty sure they want to win every competition. Does it mean the same to them as it does to us?
I hope what I'm going to say to you, and I hope I'm wrong, but I know I'm not wrong actually. But I hope I'm wrong. It doesn't mean what it means to us. We've waited all our lives. We've waited all our lives for this moment, for this historical year. Do you think they've waited all their lives? There's no danger that they have.
No.
Do you really think that they have the passion and they have the love and they have the actual thought what it means to win 10 in a row? They don't.
No.
They don't.
Someone like James Forrest, maybe James Forrest, Callum McGregor, been there since a kid.
Yeah,
that type of player. I think Scott Brown would fall into that category. Someone who's a careerist, I don't think so.
No chance.
I don't think so.
No chance. They're there for the wages. They're there for the money. They are there for the next step in the ladder for them to whatever club they want to go to. So maybe that's what Neil Lennon's trying to say as well. They don't have the attitude that we have about Celtic Football Club. They don't have it.
Well, I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to work through some of the comments that are coming through thick and fast on the live broadcast stream. I'm going to ask a question. If the reason for Edouard's missing act last night was due to the fact that he's one of the unhappy players, would you sell him? That's the question. And we've already seen some of the figures, 35 million, 40 million. I've actually seen Aston Villa being interested. If he goes down and plays for Aston Villa, he'll score 9 goals next season, right? So he won't get the move that he's maybe looking over at Dembele and seeing Dembele being a roving success at Lyon. He won't be in that same bracket. So if he wants to leave for 35 or 40, on you go with my best wishes. What do the listeners think? There's a few other really interesting points coming through. Bromsgrove Boy via Twitter comments that we've now qualified, Jim, for 2 out of 7 qualify for the group stages. That's £150 million in lost revenue. Systemic management failure. And that goes to the very top of the and they won't like us for saying it, Jim.
No, they won't.
They won't like us for saying that.
Is it true?
But we've got to say it.
But is it true?
Yes, it's true. Because if you're looking at a club like Celtic playing in Scotland, then you're actually limited to what you can do in terms of finance.
Yeah.
The one big place, the one area in business that you can make money, strengthen the squad, continue that development, is in the Champions League group stages, and we have failed time and time again to get there.
The caller, the listener and the viewer there has made a very valid point. So how can you be criticised for fact? We are not saying or making anything up. It's actual fact. It's fact. We're not. In Europe, we're just not good enough. But why are we not good enough? Because should we be buying early? Should we be settling players in earlier? Should we be developing a team long before we hit this stage in the season? The answer is yes.
Yep. I think so. And see, when you look at some of the disharmony that we've seen over the last few years, it ends one way. And how does it end? It ends with the manager going. Ronnie Dyler ended up leaving. Rodgers got to the point where he's frustrated with the players not getting signed that he wanted. Everybody knows John McGinn didn't do the deal. Next thing you know, there's disharmony in the changing room. Dembele wants to leave. He's telling everybody on Twitter he doesn't trust a man. No one knew at the time who it was. We now do. Boyata, more or less, for all intents and purposes, goes on strike, and we get bounced out of Europe against Athens, a team that we were far superior to in many, many ways, and they knock us out of Europe.
Agreed.
Because we've got a centre half who's refusing to play.
So we're asking ourselves all these questions, and we're having this talk and this debate, and we're all disappointed. We're disappointed because we don't have the really honest answer to last night. What do you think the chief executive and the other directors will be saying to themselves today after the exit?
Well, I think they're going to be looking basically at from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Simply a business perspective. Now, as Celtic fans, we've been asked to invest even though we can't go to the games.
And
we've been asked to invest, and they've done it in their droves. We sat down last night to watch the game. The season ticket's not working. You know, is anybody going to ask for a refund? No. The dedication and the commitment of the Celtic fans is there for all to see, Jim. So they're going to wake up this morning and they're going to be looking at the potential black hole in the balance sheet. Then they'll be looking at how can we sell a player to fill that black hole. Who is that player? Well, Tom Roderick's on his way out, but that's only £4 million. Encham, it's been quoted £20 million. Would you sell him? I've just brought in Turnbull, possibly. Edouard, 35-40. That's the boy they'll sell. And if they get a bid at 35 to £40 million, Edouard will be gone.
And Aya?
Potentially. And I think that's a big mistake, because that's the area of the pitch that, in terms of personnel, we don't have the cover at centre-half.
We don't.
Well, I'm now looking at the left-back position and the right-back position. We need cover right across the back. I
thought we were very fair to Taylor yesterday when we says that we could have made a mistake and he's not fully fit. But on last night's display, it still wasn't happening, was it?
Big Lawrence is coming in, Lawrence Conley. Great to hear from you. You're commenting via Facebook, Lawrence, and he reckons it is time to move Ayer and Roderick on. I'm only going by the speculation in relation to transfer fees. Roderick has been quoted at £4 million, and apparently AC Milan were interested in Ayer for £27 million. You sell Ayer, what's the option? Are you going to bring in Shane Duffy? I'm guessing that deal is somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
You bring in Duffy, more experience, much cheaper than £27 million. Will he do as good a job as Christopher Ayer? Possibly.
Yeah.
But we're still short at the back.
Still short.
You're still looking at guys like Beaton to play out of position for you.
Yeah.
As backup.
Yeah. But you look at why do you think Beaton wasn't playing last night?
Beaton, I think, is a good option on the bench in a European game like last night, Jim, because he's adaptable, isn't he?
Aye.
You can bring him on. The problem for me in midfield with Beaton is he slows things down. Sometimes that's good at the back, not so much in the midfield.
No.
But he's played Ayer. He's thrown Ayer in. Ayer hadn't had a start since the Kilmarnock game. He's thrown him right into the biggest game of the season so far. Now, I actually thought he played okay, to be fair. I thought Ayer wasn't anywhere near being the worst player on the pitch.
No, I'm not saying, no, you're right, and I'm not saying he was, but Beaton has played good games. He's played well. What about McGregor?
McGregor, again, I watched the game last night. I thought he was tireless in his work ethic, as he always is. He's the kind of guy that I'll often say could be man of the match every single week, simply because you get used to how consistent he is. But he's in a situation there where he's doing a lot of running, I believe, for Scott Brown at the moment. Yep. I think he's doing a lot of running for Scott Brown. There was a few occasions where Bruni, as pointed out by Colin Watt, lost out on challenges you would expect him to be winning in the middle of the pitch.
Yep.
He's in there as a ball winner, Scott Brown. We don't expect Scott Brown to take on 2 or 3 guys and play a defence splitting pass. But what he's there for now is becoming less and less effective.
He is, and he's doing a lot of work for him. Help him to cover for him. Christie, what about Christie?
Ryan Christie again. I think what's highlighted Christie's performances over the last 2 games has been the poor corner kick taking. I think if you take that out of his game, Christie largely has performed as Christie performs. Christie has a great game one week, he's largely anonymous the next, depending on where he is on the pitch. Let's not forget he was playing out of position. He scored a great goal. I think the deflection gave it a dip, which obviously beat the goalie. It was a smashing goal, Jim. I don't think he was on my radar for one of the worst performers, though.
So, if you were to take the 3 out of that team, Ayer, McGregor and Christie?
No, you're struggling to win the league. Never mind anything else.
You're struggling to win anything.
Yep.
So, the thing is, if there is any discontent within the camp, or people not being happy, and if it was the major players that we're talking about here, do you try and turn them round? Do you try and work them? Or if it was Edward,
yes,
if it was Edward, you would get rid of him. If it was one of the 3 that we've mentioned, would you get rid of him as well?
If it was one, I'd try and find out what the discontent is.
Huh?
Who's the problem with? Is it with the club? Is it with their wage packet? Is it because they are more ambitious than, the second qualifying round in the Champions League? Or is it the manager?
Yep.
And if 4 or 5 guys, this is what I mean, player power, Jim. If 4 or 5 guys are unhappy with the manager, generally what you find in football is the manager goes. The manager goes.
Yep.
I'm not calling for Lennon out. I've seen the hashtag. I'm not one of these guys.
No.
What I'm saying is, if you lose 4 or 5 guys, and they're important players like the ones you've mentioned, and it's all for the same reason, and that reason is the manager, then you've got an issue on your hands.
Then you get an issue. So, we've got to ask ourselves what we're looking for. What we're now looking for after last night, sorry. What are we looking for after last night going forward? What do we need? What do we want? How do we get stability?
Well, what's going to concern me? We could go out there against Motherwell, and we'll be covering the game against Motherwell.
Yeah.
We're covering all the games this season. We'll be with you about half an hour before kick-off. That's hopefully if the link works. So we'll be there. Now, if Celtic go out there and they win convincingly, and they win 3 or 4-0,
yeah.
In the back of my mind, I'm still thinking of these comments being made by Neil Lennon, because you don't turn around a dressing room in 3 or 4 days. It's deep-rooted issues that players have if they become, disharmonious within a dressing room or as a group. It's more than just a few days and a wee pep talk that's going to turn them round.
No.
These things normally end with the players going or the manager.
Yeah.
So even if we go out there and we start racking up the points domestically again, Jim, as I actually think we will, because we've got enough players and we've got a big enough squad to do that, I'm still not happy. I'm still not happy with that.
No, they're good enough. The players are good enough. They're good enough to go out and get a result.
Here's a question for yourself, Jim, and for the many, many people who are logging in. We're peaking at about 500 at any one time at the moment, which is really high figures on the Bulletin. Loads and loads of comments coming in. We've just signed Turnbull.
Yep.
Right, the timing of that, I'm not going to say it's questionable, but it's certainly not taking the sting out of it for me from last night, as much as I really rate the guy and I'm looking forward to seeing him developing at Celtic. That's not taking the sting out of the disappointment from last night. If you've brought him in, for me, the midfield area of the pitch is the one where we have enough cover. So if he's coming in, is he replacing somebody? If so, who?
He's an attacking midfielder, isn't he?
Is it Enchan?
Could well be.
Is it two birds with a one stone with that then, Jim? Is Encham unhappy? I don't know. I have no inside track at the club. Is Encham unhappy? If so, is that feeding into some of the relationships he has with other players, potentially the French players within the dressing room? You know, sometimes it's good just to say, well, he's the issue, and you move him on.
That's right. You can't have in the dressing room them and us. They sit over there and we sit here. That player sits over there. This player sits here, and they're not together. But I don't believe that Scott Brown would allow that in the dressing room. I am absolutely dumbfounded about last night's result.
I'm just going to bring up a point. Monkey YouTube. One defeat, won every competition domestically, and you're a full meltdown calling for sackings. No one's calling for any sackings, so I think the joke's on you, whoever you are, making that comment on YouTube. No one's calling for anyone to be sacked.
Absolutely not.
What we're saying is, if someone goes out and makes a wrong decision and it results in you getting bounced out of the Champions League, I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, everything's great. No. Why would I do that, Jim?
No, you wouldn't. No, and you're not calling for anybody to be sacked. I'm actually saying, and let that person know there as well, that I back Neil Lennon to the full. I back the Celtic team to the full. I back the backroom staff to the full. Mm-hmm. I back the chief executive to the full. I back the whole management of Celtic to the full. Yep. I back the Celtic supporters to the full. Nobody's asking for anybody to be sacked. Nobody's asking for anybody to leave. What we're saying is, what is the problem? But if someone wants to leave and they don't want to be there, what can you do? There can't be any cause for disharmony. So, well done for getting back to that person. Nobody wants anybody sacked. We're Celtic supporters. We're Celtic supporters, and we'll back Celtic to the hilt.
Well, the thing with that as well, though, Jim, is we are Celtic supporters, but there's a great amount of the fan base who don't want you to criticise any facet of the club. So if you get bounced out to the Hungarian champions, as we did at home last night, having played 78 minutes without a striker, some people don't expect you to criticise these decisions.
No, but what we said, it's constructive criticism. We have stated as well, Paul, this show is a show for the Celtic fans. This is their show. This is their show to put across what they want to put across regarding a Celtic playing in the league, playing in Europe, playing in the Scottish Cup, playing in the League Cup, or wherever they play. They can put their views across. They can put them across to say what they want to say. Some people might say, I don't like Julian, I don't like Ayer, I don't like this, That's not a problem. But nobody's going to be disrespectful or detrimental in comments to Celtic Football Club.
I think what happens on social media, going back to the point that was made about sackings, it certainly hasn't come from you or I.
No.
People, when there's been a bad result, people vent immediately via social media.
Of course they do.
You know, back in the day, you didn't have that opportunity. You didn't have that opportunity. So I think a lot of people say things in the heat of the moment, and they have a wee bit of time to think about it, and they might refine their views by the following day. I'm sitting here a day after what's happened last night, and my view is Celtic have let the fans down last night again. I blame, for last night's defeat, Neil Lennon for his team selection, the fact that he didn't play a striker for 78 minutes. But there's other blame to be attributed.
Aye.
And the other blame is the fact that we're never prepared for these games. This isn't something new. We know how early these games come. We know how many of these qualifiers we need to play. It happens every single season, Jim. And every single season, we're playing with people like Effie Ambrose at the back, Sadie Janko, Owen O'Connell, and, you know, Anthony Ralston. These beat on at centre half. We've seen it time and time. Makeshift defences, playing without a striker. Now, that for me isn't good enough for a club the size of Celtic. If we have any ambition to get into the group stages of the Champions League, we really need to review how we recruit players. And once we get them in, I'm not expecting them to come in the pre-season. They should be coming in the January. Who came in January? Sorrow and Klamala. Not one of them would have I have played last night because they're not ready for the first team.
Because we were doing well.
But
we were doing well. People, no, but in mentality, mentality within the club. They'll go, oh, we're doing well, but let's go the next wee bit to see how far we're going to get. And then when we went away ahead of Rangers after the new year, right, everything's fine. But it's no fine.
I want more than that, Jim.
Of course you do.
I'm not, for me, that doesn't satisfy me. Just to be ahead of Rangers, that does not satisfy me.
No, but what I'm saying is there's certain elements who think that.
They do, absolutely.
Which is wrong. So you must become stronger and stronger at every given point, at every area in that park. You must have backup to the hilt for every area of that park. Because we pull away in the league doesn't mean to say, oh, that's us doing great. What I'm saying is we must have the backup. We must have the backup. But Paul, again, you look at that lineup. You look at that lineup and you say, what is wrong?
Well, it would appear that what is wrong is there's a bit of mutiny in the camp, going by what Neil Lennon said last night. I mean, what was wrong last night was the team selection was wrong.
Yep.
You can't play a one-off European game when you've got two guys who are fit enough for the bench, who can play up front, and we don't see them until the 78th minute. That was what was wrong last night. And I could sit here and say, well, you know, El Yunusi scored a perfectly good goal, which I think he did, by the way. Don't think it was offside. Encham hits the bar, 1 inch here or there. We got beat 2-1.
We got beat 2-1. Yep, we get beat 2-1.
And that's the bottom. Yeah, the cutback with Christie trying to backheel it in.
Aye.
We're creating chances. Where's your 6-yard goal scorer? Where's your 6-yard box goal scorer? Is that not why we spent £3 million on Klimala? Where's Lee Griffiths?
It's a good question.
No one knows where Griffiths has gone. No. Or if we'll ever see him again in a Celtic strip. But what I do know is that we've had 17 corners in the last 2 games, and we have created zilch from 17 corners.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that would be taking aim if he was playing.
He would be. Last night brings all these many thoughts and comments that's coming across today. Where do we go from here? We asked it earlier. Where do the fans, where do they see us going from here? I
don't think it's knee-jerk, and we'll put that out to the fans and the people who are tuning in, because this is a broadcast, Jim, that we've been doing every single day, and we'll continue to do it. And sometimes you'll come on and we'll be, singing everybody's praises, and I'm pretty sure that will happen at some points during the season. Today's not one of those days. And Mon Key made a point earlier on, and I did suggest that you and I weren't asking for anybody's sack, and they've come back and said, well, they have seen it on social media. Yes, so have I. So, fair point. And you're also saying that Lee Griffiths is done, in your opinion. I hope that's not the case, but I've started fearing that it is the case. There's a guy, Jim, who, if he plays, he scores. He scores. We needed a guy like Lee Griffiths against Kilmarnock. Sometimes he's just a pest, and he can get the break of the ball. We've seen that against Hamilton. Last night, corner kicks, I keep going on about it. We're creating chances, we're getting offensive set pieces, and we can't utilise them because we don't have the right people on the pitch.
Yeah.
So it's a manager's job to make sure, and Lee Griffiths' job, to make sure he's ready and he gets back in that side.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you that where is the player at this particular time? Where is it? Is it Polish Paddy as well? Where is he? Who is he? You could actually say, who is Kamala? Because he's not been seen really either. They've not been seen. So what is the point of having these players about if we're not going to see them?
Well, I just think Klimala, you've looked at him, right, he's a striker, fairly young. He has a year and a half now under his belt. So where is he? That's the best question. Where is Klimala at this moment in time? We've not seen enough of him. So I think that if he's on the bench, then he's obviously fit enough. He's fit enough. He might not be 100% fit, but he's fit enough to play. So I would expect Klimala to have got a game last night at some stage. 78 minutes without playing a striker. We need to get Klimala. We need to get Ajeti in that team. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with Edouard? Why was he not playing?
This thigh strain. Do you think we all approached that game last night with a bit of contempt that, you know what, these Hungarians aren't much, Celtic's going to win it quite easily. I mean, I actually predicted a 2-0 win for Celtic. I don't know if the rest of the fans thought that was just going to be an easy walkover, and that's why today as well we're all even more disappointed than what we are. I think going forward from here, you cannot underestimate any team that we play against. If it's a big team, small team, or whatever kind of team, Paul, we cannot take anything for granted.
I don't think we underestimated them, but I think when you're looking at the fact that they beat the Swedish champions in the last round, it's quite clear that obviously, they're a better side than Reykjavik were last week. And for me, we did a wee bit of homework. We got our Hungarian football correspondent to give us the lowdown on Ferencváros, and we didn't underestimate them, but when I seen them coming out the traps, they did look like the home side. That was the biggest and the first disappointment for me. They took control of the game to the point where the goalkeeper was confident enough to come out 40 yards, get the ball at his feet and start spraying it about.
Well, like a sweeper.
That's at Celtic Park. That's at Celtic Park, and they're one-off, winner-takes-all European tie.
I know.
So what we need to look at various issues. Who's to blame? I think we've gone through all the possibilities and all the options. There's a shared responsibility, but if you look at last night, we had enough players to, even without Edouard, we had enough players to put on that park and win that game.
Yes.
And the person picking those players did not pick the right team, because he played without a striker. He had an opportunity, a get out of jail card when Christie scored the equaliser, and he didn't move. He didn't move on it. We bring on a striker after 78 minutes. Oh, so there's mutiny in the camp, we learn after the game. Your job to sort it. You're the manager, you need to sort that out. Because if you don't, then you've got to look at what happens to the manager. And generally it means that the manager moves on, Jim. So this is a massive issue. I think we'll go out against Motherwell and we'll win convincingly, but it does not paper over the cracks for me.
No, you can't paper over the cracks. We've got to find out how we sort any problems that's sitting there, and it's got to be done now. It's got to be done now, Paul. And we can't paper over. We've got to get in now. We've got to get in who we've got to get in. We must look at the players who may want to leave or who want to leave. If they want to leave, then again, we're repeating ourselves. There's no point in them being there. But we need stability. We need stability.
Stability is the word, Jim. That's my biggest concern. Another issue and questions being raised by Monkey. Do you think Edouard will want to go now that we've been eliminated? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I think when you looked at us being eliminated last season, he looked completely despondent coming off the park against Cluj last year. I think he'll feel exactly the same this morning.
I would agree with you. I'd agree with you on that. I think that Edouard will want to. He'll want to move on.
This is the biggest concern, and we've been online for over an hour. Thanks everybody for joining us. We peaked at over 500 users. Some were not Celtic supporters, but you know what? That's what happens. They come on because it's all about the Celtic. Hopefully there will be other broadcasts over the next week that will be a wee bit more positive. All that's left for me to say, Jim, is thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind, sir.
Thank you.